and this is Eliza Archery podcast number 5. Sorry about not recording for ages. We don't really have any excuse. We just didn't. On this podcast here, we have our regulars. We've got Kane, Lachlan, and Hamish. We also have joining us Mr. Astin Darcy from Canberra. Austin is the creator of the hashtag Darcy Selfie, which I'm sure you would have seen all over Instagram. Many followers there. He's also a record holder for the combined 25 and 18 metre round, which is probably arguably more popular than the 720, I'd say. Wouldn't you all agree? Yep. Cool. Thanks for agreeing, guys.
Close to it.
Close to it. Yep.
Sure.
It's incredible to have someone with such talent on the podcast. Austin, if you'd like to shout out to the fans.
Shout out, fans.
Thanks for that, Austin. That was great. All right, so
no worries, Alex.
Getting to our
and it's Mr. Darcy to you, Alex.
Apologies, Mr. Darcy. Getting on to our first topic here, we're going to talk about archery manufacturing and how the quality of Chinese manufactured stuff has been increasing, especially over the last few years. Lachie, did you want to lead off on this one?
Yeah, sure. I think it's an interesting topic. Seems to be more and more quality stuff coming out of China, whereas once upon a time you wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. So I guess it raises a question on whether or not archery as a sport in regards to equipment is becoming more affordable than ever. What do you guys think?
Well, who here shoots with Chinese-made stuff?
What?
Kane, do you use Chinese-made equipment? Does anyone here use Chinese equipment?
Yeah, I was running D-cut tungsten points in my X10s, and they worked like I genuinely could not, for the life of me, identify any difference between them and the Eastern variants. And I don't know if they're just coming out the same factory, going home in someone's pocket or something, but yeah, they were like identical in every way. Like, if you put two next to each other, wouldn't be able to tell.
You had a sight pin as well, didn't you?
What about the...
I'm sorry?
You had a sight pin too, didn't you?
Yeah, but they work great. If you're using the glass insert for a fibre optic, the glass isn't of as great a clarity as, like, say, your Titan from Australia. But aside from that, yeah, they're excellent. They beat anything bar apertures that you spend $100+ on. Only $10. So.
I think the Titans use Hoya brand lenses, which are like a quality Japanese lens, but I know what you're saying, yeah. Quality one versus cheap ones.
Yeah, the Titan uses Nikon, don't they?
They may have changed.
So I guess it's good, like, having the... Sorry, Hamish, would you like to go?
All right, I will. I think it's an interesting point what Lachie said with archery being more affordable than ever, because it was just today that someone on a forum was posted, he's like, anyone heard anything about the 2020 Hoyts? And a couple of people piped up. They're like, it's all going to be the same except $100 more. So I think it's interesting. The prices are getting steeper, but the costs of manufacturing and labour and everything are also going up.
But
yeah,
I guess
it's good for us archers, because the more that those big brands have to compete with China or anywhere else, it means we have more affordable bows and we don't have to take out another mortgage to get another setup.
Yeah, I'd say it's more like, people will always pay for the quality, like your high-end Hoyts and, good quality limbs and whatnot. I think probably some of the decent quality stuff from places like China make it easier for beginners to get a full setup before they, can justify getting a high-end, Hoyt recurve or something like that. So it gets people into the sport for less money to try it out to see if they love it or hate it, or I doubt they'll hate it, but whether or not it's for them, they're going to stick with it and then invest more money into their gear in the future for quality stuff.
On that point, I do think you get what you pay for, and if you're going into that equipment and you're just looking for a cheap purchase just so that you can, try it out as a first sort of set, then that's fine. But you just have to be careful with some of the stuff. Like, you want to make sure you're getting quality carbon that isn't going to shatter. And the first, the points aren't going to come out the first time you put them into a target. So.
Yeah, definitely things like arrows where you've got carbon close to your arm, things like that. It's more so whether like in terms of risers being machined, one-piece aluminium, things like that.
I think it comes down as well, like the trend from speaking to some of the vendors in Shanghai. Quite a few of those manufacturers are saying basically they've been making bows for the big brands for years and years now. Whether it be bows, whether it be parts for bows or limbs or parts for arrows like nocks and stuff like that. And basically they've got to the stage where they're going, well, we're making this stuff and we've been making it for them for forever. Why don't we just make this stuff and sell it ourselves? And that seems to be the trend in the last couple of years.
Yeah. And different countries have different laws about, claiming it's a product of a certain country. Like some countries, so as long as it's actually packaged in that country, you can actually put product of, that said country, even if the actual product is manufactured overseas. So, we have pretty strict laws on not breaching that, made in Australia or saying where it's made in. But there is sort of a few loopholes around the world where you can get away with things like that. Not that we want to encourage that.
But I think it's difficult as well. Like you see, especially in America, the trade associations starting to really hit down on this stuff and making sure nothing's, no copyrights are breached and all the patents are kept. But a lot of the time as well, archery is not, especially in America, it's a much bigger industry, but even over there, it's not a big industry. It is a small sport at the end of the day. And to have the money to try and get some kind of international patents just that run nationally are expensive enough without even going overseas, let alone then the money to chase that afterwards. And that's just going off things which are a copy. Yeah. But I think the other stuff coming out is if you look at Nox and go, they're a copy of X brand, or points which are a copy of, Y brand or whatever. Yeah. Some of them aren't copies. Some of them are where they're coming from. It's just the manufacturer's gone, why don't we sell them direct as well?
Yeah. And, we definitely don't want to, don't want a market flooded with fake gear, because then, you can have arrows that aren't as strong as they're supposed to be because they're coming out of a factory where it just has no quality control, and you potentially end up with dangerous equipment.
Yeah.
I think none of us want to see anything get faked and sold off as something else. But if it's a generic product and it's coming from its own brand, like D-cut tungsten points or something like that, and that's you've got the option for the genuine expensive brand name stuff, or the just basically a similar product for a cheaper price that's not stealing anyone's design, then I think that can be okay.
And on the same token, if someone walks into a store, like all the time at the shop, we have $30 whisker biscuits which come out of a shop in China, and they're just your basic entry-level whisker biscuits. We'll sell 10 of those for every one entry-level American-made biscuit, because it just comes down to people wanting to buy when they're starting at the cheapest stuff. Like my I attempted golf like 2 years ago with Ben.
Yep.
And I spent probably $400 on my golf clubs, which would be the equivalent of, I don't know, $300, $400 Chinese compound. But I used them for a couple months, had fun. I can still pick them up and use them. And, I'm sure anyone that knows their stuff in golf would go, oh, that's cheap rubbish. But I used it. I had fun. I wasn't injured, Not everyone wants to get a 3,000 bow.
As well. That kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
I've seen you play golf.
I've seen you cheat at golf and pick up balls and move them.
If you get like a world class archer, that can shoot exceptional shooting at an international level, you can put a stick with bricky string in their hands and they're still going to shoot it well.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Yeah. You could take an experienced archer, give them the cheapest arrows, the cheapest bow you can get, and they'll still go out and get a good result. It's just how it is.
Yeah, so I think it's not a bad thing. It just makes it more affordable. As long as everything's safe, it makes it more affordable. Yep. It means the entry to the sport's good. And at the end of the day, all of the... I don't know, this is generalizing a bit, but all of the really high-end product with a brand name behind it, it's hard to really copy that stuff that's, brands that have been around for 30, 40 years producing the best stuff. They're always going to kind of have their niche in the, I want to get top of the range, I'll buy this now. It just might mean they're losing out on a bit of the, entry-level, more affordable side of things, which in the same turn could bring then more people into the sport who want to buy that higher product. So I think making it more affordable to enter, as long as they get the right gear and the safe gear, isn't a bad thing at all.
That's really where it comes down to, shops letting people know that it's, hey, if you're buying a cheap whisker biscuit, hey, it's going to wear out a lot quicker. It's going to work pretty much the same as an $80 Trophy Ridge one, which will last a lot longer. But then it has the option to replace the actual biscuit and keep the housing, whereas the cheap ones just need to go in the bin. So it's like, it's like any other product. You can buy the cheap option, but you'll need to replace it more often.
Yeah, well, if you're shooting 100 arrows a week, it's not really going to matter to you, is it?
Yeah.
It's a bit of a roll of the dice as well, though. You're not getting the warranty and all that sort of stuff. If you pull it back and the limbs break and you can't send it back to the factory and get it replaced.
Yeah.
That being said, warranties don't exactly cover everything as far as even the top brands, because I don't want to cripple myself here. When stuff breaks, you read the manual and they specify all these specific things that you should be doing.
Yep.
Just say an arrow snaps in half, brand new out of the packet. Specifications on an arrow are this arrow needs to be inspected every time before you shoot it. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't sweep over my arrows with a magnifying glass every time before I shoot it. You might give it a once over where the pin meets the shaft, but that's probably about it.
That's just to make sure it isn't already splintered before you try to shoot it, because at some points, with any warning label, someone has tried to shoot an arrow that's already broken and then they've put it straight through their hand.
Yep.
Yeah, I just the warranty really doesn't cover much. You kind of, as far as breaking things, you got to do a seriously wondrous job for that warranty to be we'll cover it, because a lot of the time it's they can just plain use their error.
Well, Kane, you've had some limbs break on you. Well, without naming the brand or anything, but they were top quality limbs, and they broke whilst doing what you're supposed to be doing with them, drawing them back in the middle of a ranking round.
Yeah, that sent my thumb numb, I'll tell you that. No, but like that being said, like I've got a stupidly long wingspan. I've got a 32-inch draw length. Like, and like with a recurve, with a compound, it's a bit different. But like, nothing really specifies. Hey, this is what you should do with a 32-inch draw. And like, it's like I did get my next set of limbs subsidised, which was excellent. But like at the end of the day, like you're not like warranty's great, but like it's different from like if you buy a set of speakers and they stop working versus you have a bow that gets a crack in it. Like I don't know, it's just doesn't cover the same.
Yeah, it's definitely not. It's definitely not black or white.
No.
And then the other side of a lot of people don't understand how warranty works. So a lot of people think, oh, I forgot to load an arrow, I dry fired my bow, I'll go and claim warranty. Like, well, there's no warranty against use the arrow. You can't go to a Ferrari dealership and then accidentally crash it into a wall and then try and claim warranty and get a new Ferrari. You know, it's the same as forgetting to put an arrow in your bow and shooting it. It's not gonna hold up.
No.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times, like especially in archery, because it's generally such a small margin sport on products, that if someone blows up a bow and they walk back into the shop can't go, oh, okay, here's another one and we'll deal with it. You know, they've got to go through the manufacturer, because if they then give you that bow, they've probably got to sell 7 more bows to cover that one they've gave you just to, you know, break even basically. So it kind of comes down to, you know, like you go into, I don't know, Office Works or somewhere like that, and you have something that breaks, and they just go, yeah, no worries, here's another one out the back, because they've got a budget that allows for that. And it's a higher margin thing generally on most items, that it doesn't affect their cash flow. So I think that's where archery is different as well, because it is such low margin on most things.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, places like that would have an expected margin of loss, whether or not it's theft, damage, warranty claims, whatever. So that's spot on.
All right. Well, actually, I've got a question. So, I really do hope this sparks a bit of controversy. Out of all gear that you buy, and I think it's fair to say that all of us tend to lean towards that high quality brand name gear, what piece of gear do you think is overpriced? What piece of gear do you hate replacing or hate buying because you fail to see why its value is so high?
You just want an excuse to say Knox, don't you?
That's a good question. I reckon
Broadheads?
Broadheads are like $20 each.
Yeah, that's true.
And you shoot them once, and there's like a good chance that they'll break.
Get muzzies from Eliza Archery, and you'll be right, mate. I shoot them into rocks, and they're fine. Through mountain goats into rocks, and you're all good.
Nice.
Muzzies.
I actually can't think of anything that's actually overpriced. I think everything's pretty well appropriately priced. Like, as in you get what you pay for.
Yeah, it's hard. I guess, on the topic of broadheads, you kind of look at it and you go, you know, a pack of broadheads we get 3 for $60, and they're good, like they're top of the range ones. But you look at the size of it, and yeah, some of them are pretty simple. But in saying that, I don't know what goes into the machinery used to create them, how it works with the tolerances and stuff like that. Yeah. So you just don't know. Taking aside like all the other stuff for, you know, paying employees, all that kind of stuff aside, just the actual manufacturing, I think when you kind of buy like a cheaper broadhead, and you pay $20 for 3, you probably get 70%, 80% of the way there. And then when you pay your extra $40, and you're paying $60 for a pack of 3, you get the extra, you know, 20, 25% in performance. And I think that's where the money is, like just closing those tiny little tolerances.
Yeah. So I think
fishing returns.
It also can come down like losing your gear. So say if you lose an arrow with your broadhead, you just be like, oh no, the broadhead was worth $20, the arrow was worth 10 or 15. That's a good chunk of money I just buried into the dirt somewhere. And same with like target shooting. Like, if I shoot 3D and I misestimate a shot and bury a power flight under the ground, and I know it's cost me, say $8 to make myself. I'm not going to spend all day looking for an $8 arrow, but if it was a Eastern X10 that I'd lost, I'd be like probably spending a lot more time trying to recover it, just because it's worth so much more. Yeah.
Well, you don't go hunting with X10s.
And I guess it also, if you compare it to other sports, like I think the big eye opener for me since starting the shop was people coming in and looking at half the time you get people coming in and buying arrows and you're like, yeah, it's $10 for an entry level carbon arrow. I'm like, whoa, $10 an arrow, that's expensive. And then you get the other people that come in and buy 3 dozen FMJs for $25 an arrow.
Yep.
And they're like, oh yeah, it's so much cheaper. I do competitive shooting or just anything involving guns and four-wheel driving. They're like, the amount it costs for ammunition, you spend $150 in a day. Like, I think it is also kind of what we're conditioned to see as well. Because we expect to buy the arrows and they last, when in reality they are, they're not going to last forever. So.
Yeah, you're making those purchases, and it's not like you're making those purchases every day. And if you are, then you're not buying X10s every day. It's you're buying the cheaper ones if you're going through them that quickly.
I always think it's ridiculous when you hear somebody that says like, "Oh, I don't shoot 3D or shoot field because I don't want to lose my arrows. My arrows cost too much." I'm like, well, you could be out there enjoying it and having that full, enjoying all those different disciplines of archery. Just shoot a cheaper arrow. Simple.
Yeah, and ultimately, how much did you spend on fuel to get there?
Yeah, good. Heard both of that.
Jay, sorry, you go.
If you're losing and breaking all your arrows, maybe you just need to become a better shot.
Yeah. Go back to the 10-meter range and dial yourself back in.
That's exactly right.
I had a dude talk to me at youth nationals one day. We were all waiting to head out to the field course, and he's like, "Oh, why are you shooting X10s for field?" I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" He's like, "Well, you could miss, and then it's pretty much gone. It's pretty much guaranteed." And I looked in his quiver, and he was shooting like light speeds or something, or flat lines. And I'm like, yeah, I suppose, but man, you sort of have that confidence and that knowledge that you're not going to miss unless something drastic happens.
Yeah, especially on marked at nationals. You're only shooting marked. You know what the distance is. If you're given a distance and you're missing, then you've got bigger problems than your arrows.
Yeah, exactly that.
Throwing shade on people that aren't great. Is that...
All right, we might.
You need to go.
Yes.
We might wrap that topic up there before we insult any more people. Let's move on from that. So I guess to conclude on the whole manufacturing thing, I think it's good that it's getting cheaper to get into the sport and it'll hopefully encourage more people. At the end of the day, the top brands we know will always kind of dominate that extra little bit because they'll always have that extra edge, I suppose, just from experience and manufacturing and whatnot. So the next topic I got down here is talking about the Akibo, which is something that's not going to say controversial, but it's had a lot of mixed reviews. Does anyone want to start off on this topic?
Who developed it? Sorry.
A guy from the States. His name I can't completely remember, but I will look it up.
It was a startup. What is it, like a GoFundMe startup business? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And the guy's actually doing really well as far as I can see on social media.
Does that mean that everyone who donated to the GoFundMe has a percentage in the business, or is that a...
No, I think it's actually like the money you put in at at the beginning means you probably get the first delivery of the products when they actually get manufactured and available, and you may have even got it for like a special introductory price for almost as a reward for backing a product that hasn't even been in production yet.
Can I back 10-cent Knox or something?
I don't know. I mean, you got to give it to the guy for having basically like a design concept and going all the way through the process of getting it manufactured and distributed, and an app to go with it and whatnot. So, and he's obviously a passionate archer and hunter as well. I think it actually helps people.
His name's Matt Pell. I just Instagram stalked him. Matt Pell created the Akibo.
So some of our listeners might not be too familiar with the Akibo. Why don't you tell us about what it is and what it does?
This is yours, Lockie.
Okay. Okay, so I've had an Akibo, which I got from Eliza Archery probably about 6 months ago. Also the mobile phone mount as well. So basically, Akibo is a training device that looks a bit like a compound bow. Has a like a TheraBand similar thing for the string. So basically, you can dry fire it safely. So it lets you increase the power of the device. So you can train. You can just stretch out, or you can simulate shooting it, finger shooting, or release aid. You can put a stabilizer on there to simulate a bit more forward weight like you'd have on your own bow. It's got a laser, so if you wanted to pin up a target on the wall, you can use that for aiming and practicing shooting, or just maintaining strength by holding the red dot laser steady on it. They brought out an app which you just download and pay for. It's not that expensive. And one of them is actually target practice. Their latest ones actually have like a bowfishing game with obviously moving fish targets and different disciplines: 3D archery, target archery, Olympic discipline of 70 meters.
Yeah, I think as far as shot trainers go, because there's been quite a few, this is probably the best shot trainer around as far as actually feeling like a bow. I mean, there's always things that could be improved. I mean, I don't know how it's manufactured or what goes into it, but some things that you were mentioning earlier, Lockie, like being able to actually have, an adjustment for your draw length, because obviously you pull it back, it'll just keep pulling all the way back. I have seen some people modifying it by like tying a string around the riser to the actual TheraBand to stop at a certain point. So certainly ways you could pretty much put that stuff on, like you'd modify it yourself basically. But I do think, there was a while there when Akibos first came out that we were literally selling more Akibos than bows, just because they were the first ones to integrate the phone mount and the virtual stuff. And it is the best shot trainer on the market for sure.
So as far as I know, right now the apps are licensed to the Akibo brand, but later on maybe they'll open up that like the technology to work, with independent app creators to make more interesting games, maybe moving targets and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But what I find it's great is like if you it's a day where you can't get to the archery range or you haven't got time, or you can't shoot safely at home because you've got neighbours and things like that.
Maybe you're travelling for work and that sort of stuff as well. You're on the road.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, if you're travelling for work, or using it during your lunch break and you've just got that itch where you just would like to shoot a couple of arrows, basically. It's the best thing you can do without actually shooting a real bow.
Yeah.
What's the adjustment? Can you like what? Yeah.
So it's basically has a wind dial, so you can actually increase or decrease the amount of tension on like what you use as your string, basically. So you can increase the poundage.
What's the upper and lower limit? Do you know? Or
It goes up to
5 to
70.
70.
Yeah.
5 to 70.
I might be wrong, but it's up there.
It definitely
Bloody hell,
goes to
that's
70.
excellent.
The lowest 5 or 10. It says don't dry fire it over 40 because it gets pretty loud at that point. But you can definitely crank it all the way up and have 70 pounds of holding weight, and yeah.
Is
All that
dry
good stuff.
fire it above 40 is the only reason you're not allowed to dry fire it because of the loudness, or does it damage it?
We dry fired one at like 60 before reading that, and it smacks the back of your hand pretty hard. Yeah, it's just, it probably would damage it over time, and I think like...
Throw some stealth shots on it, you'll be right.
Yeah, that's right.
So if it goes that high, but you're not supposed to dry fire it, how are you using it if you're not dry firing it?
Well, you're holding, like doing an SPT, holding back the weight and then relaxing. Same as you would with your own bow.
Yeah. So I'll use mine for both. I'll use it for building strength. Like you said, SPT is holding. And then what I'll normally do is drop the poundage back down. And so if I'm practicing compound, I'll hook up onto the D loop and I'll practice release aid. Obviously, the bow doesn't have let off like a compound, but as far as going through that, anchor point form and technique, it works really well. It's also really good if you're teaching somebody compound for the first time and they're a little bit scared about using a release aid on a real bow. You just get them to use the Akibo and just take the arrow component out of it and just get them to shoot the Akibo a few times with the release aid before they use it on a real compound.
Yeah,
Can
absolutely.
you imagine whipping that out on a plane? Just carry on. That'd be hilarious.
Only
I don't
once.
recommend doing that.
That's how you get Instagram followers. Hashtag Darcy selfie.
That's how you get some followers. They may or may not be uniformed officers of the law.
I think it's good as well. Like we sold
Definitely
an
an influencer.
we sold an Akibo a while ago. We've sold them to clubs, exactly like Lockie just said. So there's some clubs that use them to start people out on compound. We sold one. There was someone who was a pretty avid compound shooter and was hospitalised for a couple of weeks. So he bought an Akibo, and so he was actually in the hospital bed firing off arrows and shooting fish and things. So it is pretty cool. Like as far as actually feeling like you're shooting, it does. Something could come along tomorrow and kind of tick those extra boxes, but it is the best shot trainer on the market at the moment for sure.
So I think it's really important. What the Akibo provides is training away from the range, and it's really important that everyone have whatever method they're using of training away from the range. Some people use therabands. I mean, I personally have a target that I shoot indoors at 5 meters. But I think it's really important that whatever you do, you just have some sort of method. If you can't get to the range, if it's raining or if it's too cold or whatever, that you're still able to train and substitute that training.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also why say things like PlayStation that now have reality and they're actually physically more demanding. It could also be used to transition. Say, like if a young person doesn't want to do anything but play video games, you could set them up with an Akibo, get them shooting the app, and all of a sudden they might actually want to get into it as a proper sport and put down the video game console because they've seen how much fun it is and how enjoyable it is to actually do. So, yeah, there's other things it's useful for as well.
Yeah, I like the idea of the bowfishing game. It's so regulated in Australia. That's probably the only fish you can bloody shoot.
I saw something similar, an ad online for a similar device that connects up to a projector, and so you're shooting through a mock bow, and I think you've got arrows that don't actually leave the bow, but it shoots at the screen, and it's a similar sort of system. What's
that system Joe Rogan has? You guys seen
that's
that?
it. That's it, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few.
That's like real arrows with blunts on the end.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's like playing
Awesome.
buck on a pro with like your actual buck.
Yeah, he shoots like a rubber wall with rubber tips on the arrows, and it's like he shot an elk in the head at 50 yards. He killed it. Well done.
Yeah.
It looks awesome.
You can buy them. They're like 35 grand,
Yeah,
so you can definitely get them.
What was that?
Well, the other thing is, I forget what it's called, but there's an app technology where it uses your camera. So basically, it overlays things on your screen, but it's using the background of the real world, the camera on your phone, so blending the two together.
Augmented reality.
Augmented reality, yeah, that's it. So there could be some really exciting things coming out where you might point your Akibo into your backyard, and it simulates having a 3D target at 20 meters or something like that. And
so are they blending the Akibo app with Pokemon Go? So
I was just thinking that.
yes,
I think we were all thinking that.
Yeah, I think we're all
for a
hoping
wander
that.
down to the park.
We're all
Gotta
hoping
shoot 'em all.
that comes in soon. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, how much fun would that be? Yeah, so, and there's no reason why we couldn't have that. It's just,
Yeah, that'd be cool.
yeah, somebody email Akibo tonight, and maybe they'll get on it.
Hi, Akibo. I want to shoot Pikachu. Make it happen. Okay, thanks.
I was. All right, we'll leave that.
We'll leave that as a draft. We can work on that later. It can be refined. But I think it's an excellent starting point.
Copyrighted.
That's right. One other thing to add to the Akibo as well.
In Australia.
Yeah. The laser on the front's actually really good for people with target panic. Because if you get someone to draw back on a target and then you watch it, you can actually film what the laser's doing. So you'll see people who don't say they have target panic but actually do. You'll watch the laser kind of sit bottom of the goal and like jump up before they fire. Even on the app, like I've had coaching sessions where I've just put my phone on it and they shoot the normal like Olympic style targets, and you watch them and they'll draw up and just when their dot's under the 10, they'll punch it. And then you can just screen record your phone and go back and show, look, that's what you did. And you can sit there and work on that without your bow. So then when you go back to the range, you've kind of trained that good habit. So it's good for that as well. It's really good as a target panic training tool.
What's
what's
retail?
Retail is $225, I believe, for the Akibo, and then the mount's another $50, so it'd be $275, I think, for the bow and the mount.
That's pretty reasonable. Well, yeah, for what you're getting.
Yeah, and you can buy replacement TheraBands and stuff like that. I think I've sold like 2 replacement TheraBands ever, so they don't wear through that quick. Yeah, so it's a pretty good little package, and like I said, it does all those things we've discussed, and you can spend that much on a dozen points, so it's a pretty useful tool.
Yeah.
Yep, I really enjoy mine. Use it all the time.
All right, so what we might talk about now, I've got written down for number 3 here, is the World Indoor Series coming to Australia next year. Interesting fact, it's held in New South Wales, which is I believe the only state that does not have an indoor range at all.
Does WA have one?
I'll second that. I'm from this state, and we do not have one.
WA's got indoor, haven't they? Hamish?
Hey?
Does WA have an indoor range?
My back shed?
It's probably more than New South Wales has, yeah.
No, I think usually we just do a stay at a local show.
You just hire a venue.
It'd be like a pavilion at the local showgrounds.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I haven't yet, but yep.
Well, is that what New South Wales is going to do? Like, is it? I mean,
yeah. So they're holding it at
convention center?
They're holding it at the in Liverpool at the Whitlam Leisure Centre, which is about 5 minutes away from the Liverpool City Archers club there in the west of Sydney.
So would they be like a basketball courts or something?
Here's my idea, okay? Here's my idea. Don't worry about that. Have it within Star Casino in the city. That way we've got like a little mini Vegas shoot in Australia. Imagine that.
Depends how big the convention centre is.
Just a couple of gazebos in front of the Sydney Opera House or something will be sorted.
Mate, just
in the Sydney Opera House.
Just stick a range on top of Uluru. You'll be right.
You got to hike up there with your bows first.
As long as we hold.
Good opportunity to shoot rare Pokemon on the way.
So the event is it's a 250 level event, which is essentially a minor event, but it's a good opportunity for Oceania countries and Asia countries to come and enjoy what it's like to shoot a world level indoor event. And it's a good opportunity for some of those northerners to come shoot in 30-degree Australian summer, because it's going to be in January in Sydney.
Yeah, it's going to be indoors, so there'll be aircon, sure.
When you say northerners, do you mean Northern Hemisphere?
Yeah, that's what I meant.
If there's no aircon, I know what guy.
If there's no aircon, call Kane Wilson. He'll get you sorted.
Bring your pipe cutter.
For this event, it is actually open entry, so anyone who's a member of Archery Australia is eligible to enter into this event. You don't have to go through any selections or anything like that. You pay your entry fee and you're welcome to attend.
Will you guys?
So is that?
Will you guys go?
Yeah, I'll definitely be going.
Yeah, I'll go. Yep.
So is it similar to, say, if somebody wanted to enter the Australian Open?
Yeah, so it's
Pretty
open
much.
entries, just like the Australian Open, or just like the Nationals.
Yep.
Anyone's eligible
Open
to enter.
entry to like international countries as well.
Yeah, it's a World Series.
As long as they're
yeah.
entering.
As long as they're registered with the country,
Okay,
like they're a
go ahead,
member
Al.
of the national federation, then they can go. But you don't have to represent your country or be picked as a team. So we could have
Yeah.
100 people
Yeah,
from
right.
Great Britain turning up, basically.
Well,
And then what's
Yeah.
to stop all those spots being taken up by Australians and not leaving anything for international?
I guess look at our nationals turnouts, I guess. As long as there's more than like 100
It
spots.
would just be
or
first
50.
in.
Yeah, so it'll be up to the event managers to organise how that's actually coordinated in terms of how they're controlling the entries. But it may very well be, first in, first dressed sort of thing with the entries. Once they hit the limit, that might be it.
When do entries open?
That hasn't been announced yet, but I'd expect it to be a few more months yet.
So everyone needs to get on it when it opens.
There's also
Yeah, pay attention to the Archery Australia Facebook page, I guess. Keep an eye on the World Archery website for when the event pops up. I'm sure there'll be announcements. I'm sure Eliza Archery will share the link once it's posted. So keep an eye on the Eliza Archery Facebook.
we will,
page.
attempt to, try our very best to do that. There's at least a 60% chance that will occur. Maybe 62, but I don't want to promise anything. There's also the week before, I think the Thursday and Friday, there's a barebow competition as well, which I'm sure you'll all be excited to hear.
Yeah, so it's open to there's a youth competition and a barebow competition that's running on the Wednesday and Thursday.
I'm going to do
And then
both.
the open, the Open Recurve and Compound are on the Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
What do they define as youth?
All right.
Under 25?
Youth is cadet and juniors. So being so 20. So the Australian 20 and under is the international juniors.
Damn. Guess it's just barebow then.
But just like in the indoor nationals, everyone was shooting the 18 meters on a 40 centimeter face.
All right.
Well, that'll be cool. I think the last international we had was World Field in Canberra in like 2003 or something. I don't know, way before I started.
2002.
Yeah. I think it'll be good to actually
before I even started shooting.
Yeah, well, I was 7, so I wasn't competing much at the time.
I was the right
Dude, and
age of 5.
I was 2 years old. I already had my first toy.
So I think
I
it'll
was
be
in like year 12.
it'll be interesting to see. Like I guess being in Australia without being too proud of ourselves, it is probably a pretty good destination to go for a tournament. So it'll be interesting to see how many people come over here just because it's a good place to go. But it is interesting the timing being in January, which I know they've held ones in before. I guess it's good because people are likely to be on holidays and stuff like that. But also being earlier in the year, I know there was one in Korea they had last year around that time that actually cancelled because they didn't get attendance because flights were too expensive.
The reason with the Korean one is that they held it on they scheduled it for about Christmas Eve. I think it was the 23rd and 24th of December that they scheduled it for.
Oh, all right.
So, yeah. So, but this event is running from the youth and barebow is on the 8th and 9th of January, and the open recurve and compound are on the 10th through the 12th of January. So it's that second week of January. Hopefully before a lot of people are back at work.
I think the location is interesting. Not to take anything away from Liverpool. I was in a good chunk of his childhood there, but it's not exactly your typical New South Wales. I would have.
Yeah, it comes back to Liverpool with a club that put their hand up to host it. So if people aren't happy with the location, then essentially they need to volunteer to run the event.
How far away is Liverpool from like the Opera House and Bridge? Because that's what everyone wants to see.
Yeah, a good while, probably 2 hours, probably.
No, not that far.
Liverpool. Yeah, mate.
Depends on your mode of transport, really.
Depends if Aston's driving or not, basically.
You riding a horse or something, Aston?
It's an hour by car by most, isn't it? It's 2.5 hours from Liverpool to Canberra.
Aston, I believe it's 3.5 hours.
3.5 hours at donkey trot.
As the crow flies, or so they say. But yes, it will. It'll be interesting.
Back, yeah? We'll get there in 3 days. You're not wrong.
So yeah, it'll be cool to see. Cool to see that we actually have an international back here, which will make life a lot cheaper to go to tournaments compared to going to Europe all the time. Yeah, I guess hopefully it goes well and we have it again next year, and it gets bigger and more people come and might even lead to an outdoor World Cup or some kind of, I think the Asia Cup, I'm pretty sure they held one in Australia ages ago. I could be wrong, but something of that level in Australia would be cool as well.
How are we even invited to the? I don't fully understand how we're invited into the Asia Cup.
Because everyone loves Australians.
Well, what to make it?
Asia Cup, I think actually has open entry, so they don't restrict it just to the region. Whereas if you're looking at the Asia Games, when we don't have entry invited to that one, so that was held in Jakarta just recently, actually, I believe. But yeah, we're excluded from that.
I'm sure if we asked nicely, they'd probably let us.
Yeah, maybe.
Get some of that Aussie charm going on.
Mate, come on. Can't.
You know you want to.
We might.
The old Asia would have done it.
All right. Well, anyway, moving on to topic 4 we've got here. So this week there is World Champs on in the Netherlands. World Para Champs just finished.
What's the name of the city that it's being hosted in, Alec?
Is the name of the city.
s-Hertogenbosch? Is that the one?
I believe that's what I said, Astin. Thank you for correcting me. But yes, that is what I said. So World Para's just finished. John O'Milne got a quota spot for the Paralympics there, didn't he?
Yeah, so he won that in the secondary tournament. So what happened with that was that one of the countries they qualified both teams and individuals, and because that's a double up, those individuals quota positions then got redirected to a secondary tournament where people could go through a little mini tournament on the side for that, and he did that and won a quota position.
No, smashed it. Good on him.
So for those who don't know how a quota is, so basically I'm pretty sure Paralympics is the same, but for the Olympics you don't it's not the same countries that automatically get to go, so you have to earn a spot for your country. So normally what happens is you have a chance to get either 3 spots or 1 spot. So you'll either have a team spot or 1 individual. And then whoever qualifies that spot for the country, after they've qualified that spot, points go back to 0 and the spot goes to the country. And then you have another selection process to determine who actually gets that spot. So it's 64 male, 64 female. And some of those go to the developing countries as well. I'm not sure how many. And then your host country gets automatic spots as well. I think, Astin, you looked up how it works with World Champs.
Yeah. So Para and Open are similar. Para has a lot more divisions than Open does, but and there's actually less opportunities because there's actually less entrance. But with the Open, so there's actually 5 of the Tokyo Olympics in the Open event next year, I should say. So there's the team event, the individual event, and the mixed team event, which is this Olympics is actually the first time that they're holding a mixed team event, which is really good. So, but basically the way the qualification procedure works is that you go to the World Championships as the first event. That's the first of 3 events, and if you finish top 8 in the teams, then you qualify 3 quota positions for your nation. Now those positions are actually allocated to the nation, not to the archers that won them. So if Australia wins places, then we still need to go through a selection procedure within our nation to determine who's going to go, and that'll happen next year. But there's also so if you finish top 4 in the individuals, then those are individual quota positions. However, like I said, with s-Hertogenbosch, with the paras, if you get teams and an individual, then it goes back into a pool, and depending on which event it is, it might go to a different event, or they might run a mini secondary selection event at that same event. So the Worlds is the first of 3 events at which a nation can earn the places. The second is the continental qualifiers. So there's a Europe and Asia and Africa and Americas and an Oceania. For us, for Oceania, that event is the Pacific Games. And we will only be attending that Pacific Games if we're eligible to earn places. Otherwise, we're actually not invited into the archery event. But at that Continentals, there's the only position that is on offer is a mixed team position. So the third event is Berlin, and that's the Berlin stage of the World Cup, and that's going to be in May 2020. So that's really leaving it to the very last minute because the Olympics are in July. So that's panic stations if you're still trying to achieve your quota positions at that point. But there are individual and teams positions available at that event.
Do we have any quota positions yet?
Not so. I think some of the Asian countries have earned some positions because they had a very early continental qualifier. But the first of the events that Australia is able to compete in hasn't occurred yet. So that first event is next week, and so we'll see how we go with our teams that are over in the Netherlands currently.
So it shows that.
Oh, so
yeah.
I mean, Alec and Astin, you both need to pull your finger out, or what's going on?
Well, we'll still have opportunities to contribute to the earning of those quota positions if they don't earn them at the World Championships.
I'm just flicking you funny, mate. You guys don't.
Having been through how stressful like it was to qualify quota spots last time, I'm pretty happy to let someone else do it, to be honest. It's probably more stressful trying to qualify quota places than actually going there. Because it's like, yes, at least we've actually got spots. So
yeah, and you guys got the quota positions really early last time around in Copenhagen. Whereas if it had waited till that final selection event, which was Antalya last time, wasn't it?
I think so. Yeah.
And so if you had been waiting till that final event to try to get those team positions, about how stressful it would have been then.
So it's a pretty important week.
Astin, mate, hats off to you. You are the most well-informed individual.
Were you reading off notes?
But yeah. So
he was reading off notes.
Yes, I was reading off notes. I took one.
I kind of zoned out for a bit.
But in terms of so the best results that we could hope for from Oceania, from an Oceania perspective, is that we earn some quota positions at the World Championships, and then those quota positions at the Continentals are able to go to a second or even a third country besides just Australia. So.
Yeah, so it's pretty important week. So it pretty much determines the selection process, and if we get 3 spots versus 1 spot, I'm sure there'll be some people that would be more interested in trying if we had the full team. But if we only get 1 spot, there'll probably be different people in the mix as well. So it really hinges quite a lot on the next week.
Yeah, and it completely changes the dynamic of the selection procedure and the selection process as well. So if you've got 8 people or 8 people or so trying for selection for 3 spots, it's a lot different to if you've got 8 people trying for 1 position.
Yeah, so it'll certainly be interesting. So you can watch, I think, World Archery. So if you go to archery.org, they'll have results. Ianseo.net, so IANSEO, has the scores as well if people want to follow. Also, if you follow Archery Australia on Facebook, I'm sure they'll be announcing it as well. But it's a big week as far as the whole 2020 lead up goes.